Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Second Age Show podcast. My name is Strider, and as usual, I'm here with Lakitia. Hello.
Hey everybody, good to be back.
Great to have you here. And our wizard Kyle. Hello, sir.
Hey everyone, great to be here. Great to see you both, as always.
Yeah, always a pleasure. And I think we're going to have a lot of fun tonight with things we're going to discuss. So I'll just open right away with our first news of the evening. In season 1, the main villain Adar, played by Joseph Mole, is on the search and hunt for a currently unknown talisman that holds great value. So, this sounds like something pretty important. So, what are our thoughts on this?
Kyle?
I would say for the first thing that I always go back to when I read this one is what is this talisman? Like, is it an object? Is it, and if it is an object, is it a ring?
Oh,
Yeah, yeah. That's what came across my mind as well. But I think this is clearly an issue of this information being given out of context.
Yeah.
Um, I do think a search for a talisman sounds a little bit cliche at this point, and I can't really recall any such valuable objects from the lore itself, apart from the rings, like you say. But I kind of doubt that the ring would be lost in particular because I believe we don't think any of the rings of power has been made at this point, like by the end of the first season, probably. So yeah, I'm kind of curious what it could be. Strider, what are your thoughts on this?
well, first of all, I like that Adar will have like some specific motivation, that he's not just going to be there to attack people, as it's one of the, cliche traps that some shows fall into. So I like that. That's my first thought about this. But the second one is that, well, it's definitely, I absolutely agree. It's quite interesting to think about this talisman because, as you said, what could it be? Like usually, in a more like higher fantasy setting, it could be all sorts of magical artifacts, but there aren't many magical artifacts that are not a really cool weapon,
Yeah.
a ring, or a silmaril.
Noglarim or something.
Yeah, but that's like in the rank of Arkenstone.
Yeah.
It's more like a symbol rather than having a power, right?
Yeah, that's what makes
And
me
you
wonder
have,
if the talisman
yeah.
is it an object, like, or is it something else? Because they have to be very careful about what type of like relics or objects they're gonna include in this, right?
Mm. Yeah, that's very, very puzzling. I think like one thing that it could be, so partially disagreeing with what Lakitia said, they may have made some. I think there's like a comment at some point. There are other magic rings as well. So maybe it could be like a like the father ring or something. Like one of the pre-rings. Though it wouldn't make sense for Adar to be on the hunt for the whole season,
Yeah.
or just like one
Yeah.
ring that's not one of the rings of power, but it's like one thing that it could potentially be. Like one of the rings that were pre-made before the rings of power. But it's very unlikely, so I'm also actually very puzzled by this.
Yeah, I considered that possibility too. Like it's a a prototype of a ring of power, like an early ring. But then they have 20 other rings they have to explain in this show. So I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think Lakiti's theory does actually stand. I think it's very highly unlikely it's this, but it's like the only thing that comes to mind,
Yeah,
even though it doesn't make much sense.
I think having an established ring that's existing before the creation of the rings of power would diminish the novelty of the rings of power themselves a little bit. Um, but yeah, I'm at a loss of what this could be. So I'm my best bet is that this is something that's been invented by Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
That this is something that we haven't seen in the lore before, and that this is something that's just gonna be playing a big role in Adar's story.
yeah.
So I think we'll just have to wait and see on this one.
I would agree with that. I hope if it's like an original type of relic or object that it's handled with a lot of care. You know, we've already got this like Anglicel vibe from this sword we have on the poster. So you know, I hope they're not trying to do.
But could potentially the sword be what he's looking for? Because
Yeah.
we know that the orcs who will be attacking Bronwyn's village at some point, perhaps it could be due to them trying to get hold of this sword.
That's an interesting thought. And actually, that's a really good segue into our next point, which is that the orcs will shout Adar, Adar, Adar during battle as a rally cry. So what do we think of that?
Well, we did report before, I think, right, that he will be spending some time with orcs, right? It's been a lot of episodes at this point.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, it makes sense though. I don't know. I'm not a fan of scenes where, you know, a group of people shout someone's name. You know, like I don't. It very rarely actually feels cool.
Yeah.
Like cool as intended. But you know, it could be. I mean, if it's not done with some subtlety, you know, if it's not like put into forefront, maybe like it doesn't have to be, you know, cringy or something. So you know, yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Lakitia, what do you think?
I just wanted to point out that this is something that's been discussed before and pointed out by many people online as well. Adar means father in Sindarin, and it's pretty close to the Quenya version, which is Atar, I believe. And I'm thinking maybe this just really does establish, like, obviously the orcs are not going to be speaking Sindarin or anything. I'm not implying that, but I think the meaning of the thing does, in a way, kind of establish Adar as the figure of great importance for the orcs, and especially if they're shouting his name. Obviously, he's somebody of great value. Maybe somebody who's like literally Sauron's right hand man. And I also believe that this makes it look as though it's him instead of Sauron who is in fact in charge of the orcs for these battles, or at least the one leading the orcs into battle, which I think fits very well with the theory that he'll be at the forefront as the main villain of this season, at least. And if we take a look at the character posters that we got, you know, the hands posters, he was even featured on there, and we presume that he was the one character that looked like a villain, the only one who looked like an outright villain, the very gothic one. So I think this lines really well with him being that main villainous figure throughout this season.
Yeah, I think you absolutely nailed your commentary on this with the name and all the connections with everything said prior. Yeah, he's definitely he's definitely going to be the main villain. At least it sounds like that. I think we also speculated in like earlier, in prior episodes and streams that we did, that Sauron will probably keep a very low profile in at least the first season, but maybe even throughout the second season. You know, because they will probably want to build him up, and we also speculated about because of the rights for the name Anatar, that he may have another name or something, and then we will all be surprised eventually. Like they may try to hide it even from the fans. So it definitely makes sense, especially if they're doing something like that to put Adar in the forefront. I think you, as I said, you absolutely nailed it with commentary on this.
Yeah, and I think that the more we learn about how the show is, you know, like the time compression and things like this, the inclusion of a villain like Adar, like something like an Adar, makes more sense, because we do want to see the rise of Sauron. You know, we want to see him come, the reemergence, basically. So there's, you know, this is a really good way to have that conflict and that tension without, you know, having to reveal Sauron immediately.
Yeah, I think so too. And we have reported before that he's been seen on sets with this hooded figure, which we now assume is probably Sauron. So yeah, it really makes me curious how they'll handle their whole dynamic. I think we've also reported there's gonna be some sort of discontent between the two. So I was like, one thing that came to mind is he gonna be Sauron's right-hand man, or is he gonna try and be a villain in his own right throughout the season? And are they
Oh,
gonna
like a Saruman figure, maybe.
potentially like
Of
a
sorts.
Sauron figure? Yeah, yeah, yeah. But yeah, I think he's certainly building up to be an interesting villain from the leaks we've had so far, I think.
Yeah, I mean, he does sound promising, even though I think as all the fans, we're worried what they will exactly do with
Mm.
his backstory, because still him being potentially Galadriel's brother or something like that. That's a significant change to all the lore we have about Galadriel's family ever.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of potential here, and hopefully they will, live up to them. Yeah. Hopefully they will not overdo this or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's my hope as well.
Well, in terms of, like gray characters or characters more like Saruman, our next exclusive talks about how Adar, the fallen elf, has a lengthy conversation with a woman near the top of the waterfall at this exact location. So clearly there's going to be some nuance to his character. He's not going to just be this silent villain in the shadows kind of thing. He'll have dialogue, and, he'll have plot points that where he's interacting with other characters and things like this. So who do you guys think that this woman could be, and what this waterfall location is all about?
Okay, so first of all, a little bit about the location. This is Mokoroa Falls. This is a waterfall close to other filming locations, like the West Coast beaches that they filmed at, and also Kumeo Studios. And it's certainly this like super lush cinematic location. So I think whatever's going down there is probably going to be important. And I also think that really, really beautiful locations, very, very scenic locations are often the setting for some more emotional scenes as well. So my guess is that the person he's communicating with in this scene could be Galadriel. So like Strider has said, we've previously reported that Adar is in fact one of her brothers. Which one remains unknown for the time being. But given that he's like touted as the main villain of season 1, I wouldn't be surprised if his arc also came to an end by the end of this season, when maybe Sauron is also revealed. In any case, I mean, he's not going to be the main villain throughout the show, obviously. So I think it could be possible that his arc is going to be wrapped up by the end of this season. And in that case, I think it makes a lot of sense to offer some sort of resolution to his story and just to wrap up his story arc. And I think the only logical payoff would be to actually give Galadriel the opportunity to confront him, or either confront or reconcile with him by the end of the season. So I think that's the thing that we could be looking at here. What do you guys think?
Kyle, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, this is pretty vague. I can't imagine that the main villain of the first season, that as far as we can tell, wouldn't be talking to an unimportant character alone. So I think, a Galadriel, as much as I don't want that to be the thing, that could very well be. But I'm super interested to see how it'll play out. And like I said, like I like that there's clearly going to be some nuance to the character, and that he's not just like a big bad or something like that.
So I think, the Galadriel makes the most sense, probably, even though she already has so many things to do in this season that it's going to be,
That is true.
maybe too much, but of course, maybe not. But so far we know of a lot of things that she's supposed to do. So having this is a big deal. But then again, of course, if it is indeed her brother and all that, it does make sense for them to have some sort of confrontation or of sorts.
Yeah.
Another alternative, like there aren't many, as you guys said, like important female characters that like characters with names that he can talk to. So another alternative could be that would make sense. Bronwyn, because we also I do not think that's the case. And we also mentioned that possibility of him perhaps going for the sword again. I don't think I think we all agree that it's not very likely that that's the talisman. But there's an attack on the village by orcs. He's reported to lead an attack of the orcs. She will obviously be one of the important characters in the first season, so it does make sense for her to be the other alternative that's not Galadriel.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this has to be something very important, maybe towards the end of the season, perhaps. Like if Lakitia's theory is correct, this could be one of the final scenes, perhaps, like it's episode 7 or maybe even episode 8 of the resolution of his arc.
I love how Kyle is just casually twirling his mustache like the proper villain.
I'm channeling my inner Adar.
Okay, back on topic.
Yeah.
One thing that strikes me as curious is that we actually got information that Adar is the one talking to this woman here by this waterfall, but we didn't get the information who this woman was. And I think that is pretty curious. So that kind of also made me think maybe it's not one of the main characters. So I thought, like, one thing that crossed my mind, since it still seems to be quite a prominent conversation, since it's pointed out that it's a lengthy conversation. So I don't think it's just a random person. So one of the thoughts that also came to my mind is maybe it could be one of his commanders or something. Hello, Miss Kitty.
She came to say hello.
Hello, Ada.
So I thought maybe it actually is somebody that wouldn't be as easily recognizable by people on set, because I think everybody knows who Galadriel is. So yeah, just the phrasing a woman, that one kind of made me feel like maybe it's not one of our main characters.
Good point.
But who knows?
I'm still interested in the identity, like who exactly of the brothers he will be. Like we had Finrod in the trailer and in the photo, like the first one, like the photo of Valinor. So I don't want Finrod. I want Finrod to rest in his well-deserved, over-deserved peace. And I hope this is not Finrod.
Yeah.
In any shape or form.
Now that you say that, I think it would be super weird for Galadriel to go on this, quest avenging the death of her brother, for it to this villain to end up being her brother. It's weird.
But maybe that would be the twist.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the
twist.
twist.
That like she doesn't know that Adar is her brother.
Yeah, like he could be having like some sort of helmet or something.
A helmet, and even if he's been corrupted and everything, then we'll
he could
talk a
have
little bit
something
more about that in our final exclusive. But I think it could easily. I mean, that's the only reasonable way I see them tying this all together. It would be really weird for me to have Galadriel, who's on a quest to avenge one of her brothers, only to then, by the end of the season, realize that one of the main bad guys is another one of her brothers.
Yeah.
I don't think that
should be one person.
Yeah.
I think it should be one person, and given, like you said, the prominence that Finrod's been given in all the official promotional material.
Yeah.
I think it would make the most sense that if this... I know that Fellowship at some stage said that this isn't Finrod, so I suppose that theory is likely, disregarded anyway. But for me, from the storytelling perspective, I think it would make the most sense for the brother that her story would be about to, in fact, be the same brother who turns out to be the main villain of the season. Yeah,
and especially because she's supposed to, visit his tomb.
Yeah.
So maybe maybe that's like a regular thing she does, and then this particular visit, it turns out that something happened with the tomb. Maybe his body is missing or something. Sauron is also called a necromancer. Maybe something like that happened there. So he could be like, and then she goes on a hunt, and then it turns out that the body is gone because the body has been, resurrected into an sort of undead. I don't know. There's a lot of this is like a strange territory when it comes to Tolkien. Like, not a lot of resurrections happen there.
Yeah.
No.
So, especially not of this kind.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, not of this kind. Yeah.
I definitely
It's
agree that like
interesting.
from a narrative perspective, that makes the most sense for it to be the brother, like you guys had both said. From a performance angle, like it would be weird to me that they'd have Will Fletcher play, young Finrod, or alive living Finrod. I don't know, and then to have Joseph Mall play like an undead like version of Finrod, it's weird to me. I find it weird.
Okay, yeah, I didn't like consciously think about connecting those two. Yeah, now they just say it doesn't really make. I
get
know.
that they would have to make him look different. Like I get that.
Yeah.
But I find the idea of using a different actor a little weird. But I mean, I could be missing something here. I don't know.
No, as with all the information we have at this point, that's a really good point that you made. So yeah, there's so much mystery. So I'm kind of dreading this, but I'm also looking forward to finding out like what is the mystery about, because they're certainly tying in like a really complicated knot, and there's a lot of potential here.
This is one that could, in the end, turn out to be very, very different from what we assume now.
Yeah.
Given the little information that we have. Yeah. But we do have one other information about him. So if I can go to our next exclusive. At the start of the filming, Adar's costume and prosthetics were very orc-like and evil-looking. And eventually the executives at Amazon changed his costume and designed to be more regal-looking and elf-like.
I'll just say really quickly, just to jump in really quick, that when I remember when we first started talking about this, I immediately thought, of course, it's Sauron. Of course it is. They decided on this orc-like Sauron, and then decided, no, he should have a more fair form, like an Anatar, and that's where this design came from. But obviously, that's not the case now. But that's 100% where my mind first went when we talked about this originally.
Yeah, it feels. I'll just a short one. It definitely feels appropriate, like for the main villain. From what we are used to, in the movies, but like also in the books, like the villain is usually not just an orc. It's one of the Nazgul. You have Saruman. You have then of course Sauron. They all have this like a special look. So if the main villain of the first season was to be more like an orcish person, perhaps that would kind of be a letdown to like what an average viewer may, I mean myself included, what they may expect from a villain in like the main villain in a Lord of the Rings medium. So I think that this definitely makes more sense that he has this more regal look.
Yeah, I just want to go, like, I want to take one step back. And a few months ago, there was this leak of some sort of a production sheet or something like that, where characters were described. So Adar was described as an elf, tortured, corrupted, turned into a warlord. And first of all, I just need to put it out there that whenever I think of this character, I immediately get the image of, this is Game of Thrones spoilers, by the way. But I immediately get the image of the same actor, as the zombified, decomposing Benjen Stark in the later seasons. So for me, that's what Adar looks like in my head.
Yeah,
same.
That's a really good point.
Because he does look really corrupted and not very healthy there.
Yeah.
So I think what they're working with here are clearly various degrees, visual at least, of corruption. And apparently, at first, they were gonna show him like much more corrupted, much more orc-like, and then in the end, they went for a more elegant version. And personally, I really like that they went with a less corrupted version. I feel like I'm really over the trope of, ugly exterior equals a monstrous interior as well. So I would we know that, I mean, we speculated, given that Anatar was able to, seduce the elves, that he's probably going to be looking quite dashing or elegant at least, or just, very elf-like or man-like. So we know that we will get some villains, and of course there's people like Pharazon who do turn out to be villains further down the line. So I'm not implying that all the villains are necessarily going to look monstrous. But be that as it may, I'm really happy that with this particular character, they went with a less corrupted version. That's all.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, the same. I honestly, I was very excited when I saw the posters, and I think that was probably my top 3
Yeah.
posters that I was
definitely.
most excited about.
I think it was the one that generated the most buzz originally, like when they first came out, by far online.
Everybody thinks it's Sauron.
Yeah, of course they do. That's what they want people to think.
They want people to think that, but even if you look at that poster, I wouldn't imagine a very orc-like person wearing that sort of
wearing that armor. Yeah,
that's very true.
That armor, the little we see from it, it looks very gothic. It looks like the stereotypical, classy, elegant villain. A very, I don't know, maybe a bit of a Dracula.
Dark Knight.
I think it's more like it's almost like more high fantasy than anything we've seen on screen for Lord of the Rings. Certainly more high fantasy than anything Peter Jackson did, I think.
Yes. I think a lot of elements in the teaser that we've seen were very high fantasy.
The troll,
like the way the troll and the way they presented the Harfoots.
Yes,
that looked very, very. I always say that very, very Mr. Tumnus-like.
Yeah.
Narnia.
Yes, I agree. Totally agree.
But yeah, his costume certainly looked very up there.
Yeah.
I also want to say that we haven't seen any evil elves on screen in Middle-earth so far. Wow. So having, if you're going to have an elvish villain, do the elegant thing. Give us an elf who looks evil.
Yeah.
Not just twist him into an orc,
Yeah. Or like Hitia said, some like level of transition to, if we're seeing, are we seeing the corruption of elves into orcs? Like, is that what we're seeing with Adar? Some kind of, level of that transition, does it also take place over time? Like, how does it work?
Yeah, so I honestly can't. His costume is probably one of it's definitely in top 3. I'm looking forward to the most.
Sure. Yes,
I want to see the Númenórean armor. I want to see Elendil and Isildur.
Yeah.
And of course, elves. I mean, I want to see everybody in military uniform.
And I have to say, all that. There's a lot left to see, right? Like we've seen nobody from Númenor. Yeah. We haven't seen Celebrimbor.
We haven't seen Elrond yet.
Yeah. So that's right. Yeah. We haven't.
I'm sorry. I couldn't help myself.
Or Celeborn. I shouldn't even go there. But yeah, it's there's a lot left to see, and it's lots to look forward to, I think.
Yeah, hopefully we will get something else very soon, because I think it's high time.
I think we got something. We're almost officially 4 months and a couple days out. So yeah.
Oh my God! Wow. Yes.
Things will pick up.
We did get the Bronwyn and Theo pictures recently, so I think we're good.
But that's you're hungry and somebody gives you one piece of okay, not one, but two pieces of no, I mean that would be a lot. No, but peanuts or something. Here are 2 peanuts for you.
Yeah,
and you can keep being hungry. For a while.
True.
So yeah, hopefully we'll get something soon.
I think so.
I have to say these exclusives tonight were really fun to discuss.
Interesting ones for sure.
Yeah, I agree.
A lot of story potential here. So yeah, it was a pleasure discussing this with you.
Likewise.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yes. Yeah. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks to Fellowship for having us. Do you have any final thoughts?
It's good for me.
I think this is this is something that's shaping up to be quite an interesting character. I'm really excited to see what Joseph Mall brings to the role. I think he's really good with this sort of, you know, especially if he is gonna have a sort of redemptive arc with Galadriel as well. I think it's gonna be really interesting to see him portray both
Mm.
Good
like
point.
sides to the character. But I'm really excited about what he's gonna do with the character.
Honestly, Benjen Stark was like probably maybe even my favorite character. Like, okay, obviously besides
Yeah.
Boromir,
Yeah.
obviously,
Yeah.
but I think he was like my favorite character.
Yeah.
Sean Bean is Sean Bean. Of course, he's going to be my favorite. In Game of Thrones, but I was so happy with Benjen Stark. I was so excited about him,
Yeah.
and then we saw him in like
Yeah.
what 2-3.5 episodes
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah.
And
Not
it
much.
just pains me so much. So I'm looking forward. I really hope, and obviously everything points to the fact that he will have a lot of things to do
Mm-hmm.
in this season. And honestly, I cannot wait to see what he will do because I think this is very good casting. I was
Yeah.
when I saw Joseph Malk that he was cast as one of the leading roles. I was so happy because I think he can do a lot of good things, especially as a villain.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going to be really interesting, and obviously he will have a lot of things to do.
Mhm.
So that's going to be really cool.
Yeah.
I cannot wait for that.
I agree.
All right.
Okay. Well,
This was fun. So
yeah, we can wrap this up, I guess. So thank you all for tuning in with us on Sunday. Happy Sunday evening or morning or day or wherever you may be. And hopefully you're gonna have a fun Monday morning. Thank you all. Thank you, Lakitia. Thank you, Kyle.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
And
thanks for having us, and thanks everybody for joining.
Yes. We'll see you next time.
see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.